Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another recommendation video. Welcome to a highly requested recommendation video. I am so excited to do this one. I didn't know if I had enough books to do another one of these recommendations because I did one probably last year around this time. I did a gay romance recommendation and now I think it's finally been like I have enough to talk about. So let's dive in. I'm working on making my recommendation videos shorter and more concise than they are because I end up rambling for such a long time and I want to make these accessible and shareable and easy for people to get into. So let's go ahead and dive into some gay romance recommendations, okay? Let's do it. The first one I want to talk about is Sheriff's Secret by Webster. This is the first book in the Lobster Bay series. I think that's what it's called. It's going to be a series that's written by different authors. So I've only read the first one so far because it was by Webster, and I try to read as many of her books as I can. Woman has, like, seriously, she puts out so many books a year. It's hard to keep up with her. But whenever she does a gay romance, I like to pop in because I'm a big fan, right? I'm a big fan. So this one is, okay. Sorry, let's talk about it. Obviously, it's a gay romance. I was just going to say this one's a gay romance. All right, so this one is about a sheriff in the town, and when he was in high school, he had a sweetheart, and him and his best friend, they were partners. They were lovers. They did all their experimenting together. Well, on their graduation day, his friend decided to come out, and the sheriff, sorry, he wasn't the sheriff at the time, but I can't remember his name, so we're calling him Sheriff because that's what this book is. He knew that he couldn't come out at that time. He wasn't ready. And so he basically got left because his friend needed to come out because it was time for him to come out in his journey. And he was left in the closet while his friend came out and was mostly accepted and went on with his life. Now this friend is back in town again with some other new business people. And one of these business people is kind of this high-powered executive who has come to town to, I believe, build something there. And these two are extremely attracted to each other. But this new guy in town, he does not have the time to be someone's dirty secret. He does not want to be this guy who has been in the closet for all of these years to be his dirty secret. He's just like, I don't want to do that at all. It's not the life I want for myself. But these two have crazy chemistry with each other, and it ends up being kind of a secret fucking situation. And I'm not a huge fan of the I'm scared to come out ones. I feel like they're the most realistic, but they're also not what I want to read in a romance that's a fantasy for me. But this one just really works because I appreciated how the story was told, and I appreciated how we dealt with it, and I understood the fear of him being disowned at any age, being disowned from his father, who he really loves his dad, but he knew his dad wouldn't accept him. And so it was a lot, but it's Webster. It was super steamy, it was sexy, and I ended up appreciating it. And then there's Fake Out by Finley. This book was one that was recommended to me by a viewer, and I actually did a viewer recommended vlog at the beginning of the year. So I just read this back in January. And this one, it's so the setup of this sounds horrible. So I just want to preface that. But it's about this guy who he literally had been with this girl for so long that he was expected to marry her. But he didn't want to marry her because he knew that she wasn't right for him. So when she started pressuring him to marry her, he came out and said he was gay. So he literally came out as gay to avoid marrying a woman. Pretty shitty thing to do. Well, now he needs to go back home for, I can't remember, I think it's someone else's wedding he needs to go back home for. And so he needs to go back to this town with a boyfriend. So his coworker and best friend, she has a gay brother. And so he asked his friend if he could borrow her brother as his fake partner for this wedding. So yeah, That's what this book is about. And so it's a fake dating relationship. It's also a fake gay because he's not gay, or is he? So take this for what you will. I'm not judging the story. I'm just telling you about some gay romances I read recently. So I know a lot of people love this. Then there was Roommate by Sarina Bowen. I love Sarina Bowen's gay romances. This one is one of her newest releases. I believe it's the start of a new series, but it's a spin-off from a previous series. Because like all of Sarina Bowen's worlds are kind of connected to each other. But this is another case of someone kind of being in the closet in this one. I mean, it's just a trope you gotta get used to when you're reading gay romances because it's what adds tension to a story. And they're not always my favorite when it happens, but this one was really sweet. And it came with someone who he was really open to checking out his sexuality, but he also like, and he comes from a home where like they wouldn't judge him if he was gay, but I think he just doesn't want to say anything until he's like sure of it kind of thing, right? Which is great too, well, not great, but is like understandable if he's like, I need to figure it out myself. But we have this guy who he's been disowned from his family for being gay, and he doesn't have a home or a place to stay. And so he ends up getting this job, but he has no place to stay. And so he ends up being roommates with the guy who is feeling super attracted to him. They actually knew each other in high school, and he had seen this one guy messing around with men, and he was kind of a voyeur for it, but he didn't view himself as gay at the time. And so he feels threatened by the presence of this guy because like, this guy knows that I used to watch him get blowjobs under the bleachers. But he sees that he's in a tight spot and he literally doesn't have anywhere to stay. So he is like, well, how about you come and stay with me? I need a roommate. And so then we have forced proximity and some experimenting that ends up happening. So there was that. Then Into the Fire by Mia West. So this is actually a series of novellas, and this is a historical romance, gay romance, between a soldier and a blacksmith. And they were actually friends when they were young. They were kind of raised by the same guy, and then one of them went off to be a soldier, and one of them stayed and learned the trade as a blacksmith. And he actually married and was about to have a child, and his wife was murdered by wandering bandits. And so the only thing he has left is his hammer that he uses at the forge. And then this soldier, who he knew when they were kids, comes back through, and he actually ends up like beating the guy up because he thinks he's another bandit. And then he realizes that this is his friend from childhood, the one that he had a huge crush on back then. And this guy, after being at war, he's kind of used to men helping out men, is what they called it. So this is like post the Roman Empire, but it's still in like early AD. So it takes place in like 400 or 500 AD or something like that. And it's just a beautiful saga. I actually only read 5 out of the 10 novellas because it just kept going with their lives. So it started with them first reconnecting and starting to experiment sexually. And I like this because they were 2 like bear of men. Like they're just those big burly, the dude's a blacksmith, the one's a soldier. And I just really love when it's 2 big, strong, beefy men fucking each other. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm reading male romance, and that's what I want sometimes. And I just loved the society that they were in, was like very accepting. And this actually leads to like a whole series that Mia West has done. I haven't read the other series yet, but it actually is about, there's one of them that actually has like some non-binary and like trans characters in it. And they make this like gang of peeps that go around doing things together. And so I have the first one in that series, and I want to read it at some point. So this is a good one to try. All right, then we have Follow the River by C.E. Ricci. This is part of a duology. It's actually called the River of Rain duology, or duet. And so it's Follow the River and then After the Rain. This is very like controversial duology. The author took some heat because of the way she explained her trigger warnings. She was like, I don't want to tell you what specifically the trigger warnings are because it will give away some of my story. But she's like, just assume that if there's a trigger warning, it's in here. There's a whole lot people can say. I know people want to list them out. I personally, in videos when I've talked about before, I have listed them out because this story is like, it has a lot of triggers in it. This has a bisexual man. And so it starts in college, and they're on the football team, and they get a new person to their team. And now this guy it's River and Rain are their names. That's why the series is called that. And they are really attracted to each other. But the new guy, he has a lot of trauma from his past. And so he doesn't even want to contemplate having a relationship with a man because he was assaulted as a child. So there are some of the trigger warnings there. There is assault, and there is molestation, and there is assault by one partner to another. So that's something that you will see in this. There is some non-consensual elements that happen in this book. Things get, like, there's some bullying elements that happen in here that are pretty physical. But what ends up happening, why this story was really amazing to me, is that they keep having all these arguments, and so the coach of this team sends them to stay at his cabin for a month to spend time together to become friends. I don't know what coach is allowed to do that, but for story reasons, it happens. And so the first book, we get to see the beginning of their relationships and them being at this place. And then in the second book, we see the fallout of everything that happens. So the series is very interesting. You should look up every detailed trigger warning. I think I've mentioned most of them. This book was super high angst. I loved the first one. I absolutely loved Follow the River. It fed all my deep, twisted, dark desires. The second one, I feel like wasn't executed as well, but I believe there's going to be more in this like setup. And so we're introduced to a couple characters that I think will be in their own book, and I'm pretty interested in seeing how that turns out. So that's where I'm at with that. Then there is Someone to Love and Someone to Hold by April Wilson. So I've never read any other books by April Wilson, but I read Someone to Hold about 2 years ago, okay? So this is an age gap. It is he's a police officer, an inspector, something like that, and he is investigating these murders of some gay men. And then we have this gay socialite. He's actually the son of a judge. He's very well loved, very well liked. And his friend is murdered. So he gets spoken to by the detective. They're very attracted to each other. This detective is older. I think he's almost 40. He's in his late 30s. And then the other hero, he's in like his early 20s. So there's a bit of an age gap. Also, our hero, he's never been married before. He's never had really serious relationships with women, but he's never been with men before either. But because he's never really felt connection with anyone before, when he feels it for this young man, it's just like life-changing to him because he's never had a connection with someone the way he does with this person. And so, yeah, this is, I guess, the beginning of a series. So I read the first one, and then the second one kind of wraps up the story from the first one, but they are actually going to be like independent detectives together. And so I'm really excited to see this duo that gets created. They have such a sweet relationship. Like, it just felt so tender to my heart, the relationship that these two have together. How protective Tyler, the older man, is of his new partner, and how they learn to communicate with each other. Like, it's so precious, and so I definitely want more from this series. But if you want, it does have a mystery element because they are trying to solve a murder, and so it has some of those aspects to it if you're interested, as well as a really beautiful love story. I really liked it. Then there is Kidnapped by the Pirate by Keira Andrews. Keira Andrews is a new find for me. I've actually read 2 books by her, but I wanted to put Kidnapped by the Pirate on here. This is a young man. He's 18 years old. Nathaniel is his name, and he is on his way to, his father has set up an arranged marriage for him and this woman, and he doesn't really have a choice in it. So he's traveling with his older sister to where his father, has set up this arranged marriage. They get attacked by pirates, and Nathaniel, to save his sister, offers himself up for ransom because his older sister, she's already married and she is pregnant. And so he offers himself in place of his sister so that she can go home, and she's going to carry the ransom note to his father. He gets kidnapped by this pirate named Hawk, who actually used to be a privateer but had his license revoked by this young man's father. So now he's a pirate, even though he always wanted to be a privateer and do what, and help out his country. He was tricked and now he's stuck as a pirate and he can never go back. And so he is going to hold Nathaniel for ransom. But of course, we can't put Nathaniel in the hold because he's such a beautiful young man that nefarious things would happen to him if he was in the hold. So Hawk makes him a prisoner in his bedchamber, where their relationship kind of naturally develops from there. This doesn't have any non-consensual scenes in it, I want to tell you, but it did give me Sea of Ruin vibes. So I want to put that out there. Like, if Sea of Ruin is a book you really liked, like it is mine, there are elements of Kidnapped by the Pirate that really reminded me of Sea of Ruin, minus any non-consensual bits that there is, because Nathaniel has always had feelings for men. He had a tutor that he used to really care about and had like romantic feelings towards, but he's never acted on them before because he knows he's supposed to marry a woman. Hawk has actually been in gay relationships before, but he had a partner that he was with for quite a long time, and then he was killed somehow, and so he's never, he's never tried to love again after this. So I'm a sucker for all of these things. This, like, it's kind of a grumpy sunshine trope, and Nathaniel just brought so much hope into his life, and it gave me all the feels. It was really beautiful. So I highly recommend this one. Highly recommend. Then I read The Intern by Sarina. This is another age gap and kind of like grumpy sunshine one. This one is about this older gentleman who is a businessman. He's British, actually, too. And he is known as a player. What people don't know is that he actually owns a sex club where you can have sex in the dark with people. And he basically bought this club and set it up so that he could have trysts with men and not have people know who he is, because you literally have sex in the dark. And so he has an encounter one night with this just amazing man, and then right as they're about to leave, there's a glitch with the lights and he actually sees the guy's face, and then they go their separate ways. They don't even say anything. Well, fast forward to the next morning when he's showing up at work, and he gets in the elevator, and there is this young man. And it turns out that this young man is an intern in his office. So these two became kind of but it's even, so the older gentleman, he's kept his sexuality a secret. The younger gentleman, he's only been out for a year. So he's never even had a male-male relationship either. This was his first time finally getting to have sex with a man when he went to this club, because he was ready to experience it, and he didn't have any relationships yet. So he'd only ever like kissed guys before. He'd never fucked one. And then it turns out the first one he fucks is his boss. So this one was good. This book, I was not expecting it. This has a scene of female on male rape of one of our heroes, okay? So want to let you know about that. I was not expecting that to happen. But Sarina, she's one of my favorite authors now. Like, I'll just say it. I love her Filthy Fecker series and some of her other novels, and I just really loved how she handled this story. It brought me to tears, and it was just really beautiful. So again, highly recommend. Then there is Top Secret by Serena Bowen. I recently mentioned this in another video too, that had to do with like hidden identities. This one is, there is this couple, a male and a female couple, who they're looking to have a threesome. And so the male in this relationship, he goes to this website where you can find a third to have a threesome with you. And so he gets in connection with this other guy, and they start talking about how they would do a threesome, what it would be like. Well, then he ends up breaking up with his girlfriend, and the threesome never happens. And he continues to talk with the guy, and then discovers that he actually knows this person. And now, knowing how each of them feels about possibly fucking each other, things happen. And then the last one I want to mention, and this I guess is kind of like, this one's been around for a while. This is actually the only one on this list that's written by a man, which, man, I wish more gay men would write me some gay sexy romances so that I could read them. So if you know more that are written by men, I have read a few that aren't on this list because I've made another video about this. But if you know some more gay romances with sexy times that are written by men, I would love to have them, because there's just a way that men write it, that they don't write it as gentle. And I like that, because when men are fucking men, it's not always going to be this gentle romantic thing. But it's called Hothead by Damon Suede. I actually listened to this one on audio, and this one is about two firefighters post 9/11 in New York, and they're two best friends, and the one friend has literally had a thing for his friend forever, and things finally start to escalate. There is some seriously amazing scenes of like masturbating in front of each other in this, and their first time together is this like 30-page sex scene of experimenting and doing things. And this is another one of just like male like wrestling in like sexy times, and it's just, oh, it's so good. It's so sexy. And yeah, it is like, it's written by a guy too, so I feel like that just gives it this complete other feeling to it, when amazingly it's actually written by someone who is a man himself. So anyway, I hope you like some of these recs. Male romances are things that I go through phases with. Like half of these books in this recommendation I've read just in the last month, because I'll go through a phase and be like, oh, I want to read all the male romances, or I want to read all the menages that I can find. You know, that's just kind of how it goes. So anyway, I hope you find some new ones to try. I'd love to hear what some of your favorite recommendations are. Maybe I've read them and just didn't mention them, so I'd love to hear. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.